I started winemaking over in the Seattle area, and that's where I live actually. But I travel over here every week to take care of this place and make the wine here. So the way I got into the business really was I was 20 years old and was working in restaurants and basically out of high school. And when I was working in one of the restaurants in Seattle area, SeaTac Airport, the Red Lion Hotel, the Maxie's Dining Room, I was a busser back in, I was 18, 19 years old, and they canned the wine captain, and I had been there 6 months as a busser, underage and everything. So they called me up. The maitre d' called me up and he says, "Hey, you know a little bit about wine." I had been making wine at home, making beer and bringing bottled beer and stuff into the restaurant and sharing it with all the guys that worked there. And he said, "Why don't you be the wine captain? Because I fired the wine guy, so I'll let you do it today. Run downstairs and get a tux on, and we'll let you do the deal." So he said, "Monday morning, this is like a Friday," and he said, "Monday morning we'll hire another wine guy. I'll start interviewing right away." So put the tux on, worked that weekend, and he never took me off the schedule. So it was like a year I worked for this restaurant as a wine captain. And really all I had to do was take a ticket with a number on it, match it to the bin, and bring the bottle to the table, open it, and act like I knew what I was doing. So, I got kind of shoved into the interest of wine. But to further my education, I started touring Chateau Ste. Michelle and other wineries in the Woodinville area, and actually took a trip down to Napa and just toured wineries just to learn about it. The first time I toured a winery, which was Chateau Ste. Michelle, I just did the regular tour. Walked through the winery doors, and as soon as I could smell the winery, I just was like in love with the whole production and the process. And I had no idea anything about it, but at that point I just decided I wanted to learn more. So, years later I figured out that that great smell was just wet cardboard cases, not barrels and wine and all that stuff. So it was interesting, but it got me into it, and I started touring more wineries. I found a little winery in Woodinville, Washington. We're kind of where all the epicenter of the Western Washington wine business. I volunteered at French Creek Cellars, which is this, started up by a bunch of professors from the University of Washington, and they started it in, like, I guess, the 70s or late 70s, early 80s. So I worked there as a volunteer for a summer, still working at nights at the restaurant, and then after 3 months of volunteering there, they hired me as assistant winemaker. They just said, "Well, we need your help, and why don't you just come on full time?" So I tried to balance the restaurant job with that, and then eventually quit. Just jumped right into the wine business, working at French Creek. And then to kind of pick up the pace here about my story, I worked there for just a little while, a short period of time, and met a couple other winemakers, and through that, moved through 3 or 4 wineries and worked a harvest at different wineries, at Matthews Cellars and Columbia Winery, and just got a bunch of experience. Back then there was 60 wineries in the state of Washington, so it was really easy to know all the wineries and winemakers in the industry, and now there's almost 600 wineries in the state of Washington. This is just basically in 15 years it's jumped that high.